my record button wasn't working, so sorry folks at home. We're doing a screen recording today. You can still hear me, you can still see the screen, but you won't be able to do that. We already did our Japanese extension projects. You should turn those in on Google Classroom to me, or I guess one of you sent it in with your sister. But the other thing is that everybody presented them. All right, so I didn't record that, and at the end I'm going to stop the recording when we do group work, and you can just do it. It'll be something that is sent to you. All right, folks, can we cut the lights? Do you guys love, is there anybody that this is a new dessert for? You've never had it in your life? Raise your hand.
I love it.
It's really amazing, isn't
I think I have
it? You don't like it?
No.
Can you please not leave it on your desk? It's ice cream, it'll melt. You can throw it in the trash.
I don't like it.
Did you even eat it?
Yes. If anybody did not consume yours all the way, can you please not let it melt on your desk? It's mochi. That's what they're talking about. Yes. Wait. I'm recording you. I need it to tamp down. Lila, question?
Wait, what is it on dough? I had one.
Ben.
It had mochi there, but it was warm, but it tasted good.
I'll bet it did.
It wasn't like...
Because warmed mochi would be like whipped cream on the inside of a... Yeah. Now I'm sure it's amazing. Ben, is this necessary?
Yes.
Okay.
I bet it would taste better fried.
Yes, and there is a dessert that has essentially fried mochi. You can sometimes get that I think at Mexican restaurants, you can sometimes get the fried dough balls with ice cream on the inside. I do not think Mexican restaurants, however, are known for their desserts. In Richmond, most Mexican restaurants have Greek desserts. They have some Greek grandma in the back who's making like baklava. And it's amazing, but it just shows you actually something about the food community in Richmond. I think there's a lot of Greek people who own the Mexican restaurants.
Except for churros.
Yes, that's true. But I don't know that they're as satisfying as like a really amazing baklava or cheesecake or something like that. Anyway, moving on from desserts, here's your homework. Lesson 53. What's the topic of this? Look at my note cards written out. What's the topic? Australia. So you're reading the lesson about Australia. Focus. Ava, focus. And you're doing note cards. All right. There are some things here at the end that I want you to keep in mind. Your map quiz 5 is next Monday. Your next test, in-class test, will be the following Wednesday. So a week and a half from now is your next test. Yes, you should go ahead and start looking at your note cards. Because if there's one thing I want you to finish middle school knowing, it's that you should not wait until the night before to study. Don't do it. Your brain doesn't work like that. You won't retain material. You need to actually study ahead of time and treat your brain like the muscle it is that needs repeated exposure to material to peacefully learn it. Why stress yourself out when it's not that hard to take your note cards and flip through them when you're not under stress and not under pressure? Ava and Lila.
I didn't do it.
No, I don't want talking. Ben.
So the test next Wednesday or the following?
Quiz is on Monday. The test is the Wednesday after that.
February.
Not 2 days from now. It is February the 9th. And where can you find the dates for all of this? In a magical place called?
Curriculum. Redway.
No.
Syllabus.
Your syllabus.
Yeah.
Your syllabus. Does your history teacher stick to the syllabus?
No.
Perfectly. I always stick to the syllabus. Go look at your syllabus. I have every single day this year done what the syllabus said I would do.
Wow.
So if the date on the syllabus tells you that something is due, that's when it's due. In fact, every single time, no more. Every time I prepare a lesson, I look at the syllabus to see what I told you was due the next time.
Wait, we have a syllabus? Yeah, in class.
And it's printed and it's in your notebook, unless you did not do what you should have done.
I did check.
You will also be finishing some in-class group work questions, which if we stay focused right now, you'll get more of them done in class. And if not, you'll have more to do for homework. Yes, Chris?
The syllabus, it says we do Australian averages on
We do.
Oh.
So it's telling you what we're doing on that day. That's not a homework syllabus. That is telling you what we're doing on that day. So you can look at it and it will tell you, for instance, that the map quiz is next Monday, February the 5th, I believe, 5th. And the test, in-class test, is on Wednesday, February the 7th. You see that? And can you look ahead and see when your historical picture book is due on that syllabus?
The 14th.
The 14th of February. I know you guys have been working on it. Valentine's Day. We're going to be seeing some
Valentine's Day?
I already have.
Excellent. No, you're in school. That's even more fun. It's more fun to be here for Valentine's Day. What are you going to do at home? Sit around and go, I love me. I love me. I love my mommy too. No, it's great to be in school on Valentine's Day.
No, it's not.
All right, guys, I need some focus, especially from the back corner.
Oh, them.
For our prayer today, I'm going to read you a bit, and this is only a small portion of one of Sir Francis Bacon's prayers. They are really long, and they have, if you look at them, they have all the language that you would expect from Shakespeare or the King James Version of the Bible. But guess what? That's how people actually talked. He wasn't trying to be fancy with his language. This is the way people talked, which is why Shakespeare wrote the way he wrote. And why the King James Version of the Bible is like that. It was actually the way people communicated. So I'm going to read this to you. We're not going to read it together. I wouldn't want you to have to stumble through the words on this. I'm going to read you his prayer, but there's something I want you to get before I read this. And I want your complete attention for this point. Listen to me. Sir Francis Bacon is known for the Age of Reason. But there is another term for the Age of Reason that you might have heard of before. The Enlightenment. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of the Enlightenment. Okay. The Enlightenment is often thought of as something that set people on a course that really took them away from God and from understanding the Bible. It's like trusting in humans' reason. But the point of reading you this prayer is that I want you to realize that a lot of the early Enlightenment thinkers were Christians who believed that God spoke to them by faith and that God gave them reasons. He gave them reason. He gave them science. He gave them knowledge. He gave them that. And they believed that these things work together. Is that true? Is it true that faith can work together with science?
Oh,
Yeah. Yes. So the early Enlightenment thinkers actually believed that God was the one who was inspiring their work. Later people took those ideas and shunned God in the middle of it, but not the early thinkers. So I'm going to read you this, and that's the main thing I want to stick with you from Sir Francis Bacon's prayer, is I want you to realize this. You can either look at the board or you can close your eyes, but do not touch water bottles or talk to your friends right now. Sir Francis Bacon's part of his prayer. See if you can follow this either by listening or by reading with me.
Don't worry about us.
Move. Yeah, right now. Ava, move over. No more of that, please. All right. There is mercy with thee, O Lord, that thou mayst be feared. Yea. Thy mercies swallow up the greatness of our sins. They speak peace to our souls and consciences. They make us happy in the free remission of all our sins and be reconciled to thy poor servants in Jesus Christ, in whom thou art well pleased. Suffer not the works of thine own hands to perish. Thou art not delighted in the death of sinners, but in their conversion. Turn our hearts, and we shall be turned. Convert us, and we shall be converted. Illuminate the eyes of our minds and understanding with the bright beams of thy Holy Spirit, that we may daily grow in the saving knowledge of the heavenly mystery of our redemption, wrought by our dear Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Sanctify our wills and affections by the same Spirit, the most sacred fountain of all grace and goodness. Reduce them to the obedience of thy most holy will in the practice of all piety toward thee and charity toward all men. Inflame our hearts with thy love. Cast forth of them what displeaseth thee, all infidelity, hardness of heart, profaneness, hypocrisy, contempt of thy holy word and ordinances, all uncleanness, and whatsoever advances itself in opposition to thy holy will. All right. So when I read it to you, did you follow what he was saying, kind of? Sort of? Yeah. It's a little complicated, but you definitely get the idea that Bacon trusted, in a very orthodox way, trusted in God through Jesus. All right, the upcoming field trip, I wanted to make a little push for this particular thing. I got an email from Mr. Bannister last night. He has been working very hard on reworking this to make sure that it'll fit our time frame, and he told me a lot of details about it. I'll take questions in just a minute, but I wanted to tell you something that I can't remember if I said this last time. If your fathers have flexible schedules, if they don't work 9 to 5, if they sometimes take time off, during the day, or can adjust and go to some stuff, I wanted to tell you, tell your fathers they really might enjoy coming with us to this performance. Mr. DeRocco loves Mr. Bannister's performances, and I just feel like in general, dads would like the instruments, the music, the history. It's the kind of thing that dads who agree that their kids should be homeschooled tend to really love this kind of learning. Even the kind of taking on a character and doing stuff like that. So just keep it in mind. If your dad can't, of course that's fine. But if it's a possibility, maybe push him to make it work and to come with you guys. Same for grandparents. Grandparents tend to be pretty excited when their grandkids are homeschooled, especially if they get to participate in any of the learn things opportunities. So that is my push for this. Yes, Matt.
What exact time of day?
Oh, 10:30. I didn't put that on there. Yeah. So 10:30 to 12. Yes, bro. Did you say who is he? He is the grandfather of an elementary student here, and he is my former principal when I taught earlier in my life. He was my principal, and he used to do this kind of production just on a normal weekly basis for our chapel programs. So I've seen a bunch of his stuff, but now he does reenactments at places like Henricus Park, Maymont, at festivals, stuff like that. So he does a lot of this stuff now. He has quite a bunch of things. In fact, I really am hoping that next year we can get him to do the one where he plays half a Union soldier and half a Confederate soldier, and he has a special uniform that goes both ways. It's half gray, half blue. That is, I'll talk to Miss Olson about it. We usually plan our field trips together. Yes?
Did you do field days in the past?
No. Oh wait, are you talking about an event called? Oh yes, yeah, he's done that.
Because I met this.
I thought you meant my field days in the past. No, he's done field days in the past.
And I went and there was this guy and he was making like guitars with hands and he was just hanging out.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same person. He does a lot of different characters, so he wouldn't necessarily be a music person at another festival. He can do tons of different productions. And he's gonna we're gonna have a little extra blurb where he'll talk to you guys about, if you have interest in doing this, what it would take for you to also do living history. But we'll get to that later. Okay, I'm just gonna do the point thing today because we have 2 lessons to cover. Let's start with the stuff that's for this time. What name?
Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Vermont, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Idaho, Nevada, Utah, Montana, Colorado, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska.
All right, we'll stop there. Good job for those of you who are able to pull that up. Okay, have your note cards out. Yes, Ben?
Shakespeare.
Oh yeah, have your note cards out, and let's start this. Note cards, please, Lila. And Lila, you're not more in trouble than the others. I moved you over so I can move Ava over. Everybody was being too loud. Shakespeare, William Shakespeare is who we're talking about. When you see this picture, it's probably a little famous, and we're not going to point out his fashion as much as we will Sir Francis Bacon, who has magnificent fashion. Yes, Ben?
I have my other notes.
You can't show them to me right now. We're in the middle of this. You have to remember afterwards. Greatest poet and playwright of England. Okay, famous theater in the suburbs of London. If you have done any Shakespeare before, you've heard of this theater. Like
Globe Theater.
the Globe. Have you visited? Yes. So the Globe Theater is in the Round. And what I remember of visiting this part of England not very long ago, just a few years ago, is that I went to the Tower of London. You can tell me if this is the route you took. But the Tower of London, then across the bridge, which I don't think that bridge is London Bridge, but it might be. The one that goes right from the Tower of London across the river.
That one's Tower Bridge.
Tower Bridge, okay. Yeah, London Bridge is down a little bit. So across the river down there, and then you end up on the other side of the Thames River, and if you walk back upriver, I think, from there, we rented the little scooters or bikes or something at that point. But it's a bit of a walk, but you pass the Globe Theater on the left, and if you keep going, you end up at the London Eye. What is the London Eye?
Oh, it's the biggest Ferris wheel.
It's a huge Ferris wheel. So that's the magic I remember. So if you remember, when you've studied this before, it's in the round on the inside. Mm-hmm.
So when we were there, we were just like, I think this is the right place, but we saw someone, it was like actually not too crowded there.
Yeah.
I just forgot what I
Yeah.
was gonna say.
So the people would sit maybe here in these things. That was for the people who had money. And the commoners would stand around here. If you can get over the fact that Shakespeare plays are written in Shakespearean language, and remember that was just normal English to them, then you can get some of the humor and comedy in Shakespeare by thinking about the fact that all these people were standing around interacting with the actors. This was the rabble. This was the commoners who had paid maybe a penny to come see this play, that might be throwing rotten vegetables at the actors, that might be yelling at them during the play. It was not the way that Shakespeare is today. Let's all sit, let's dress up, and let's be really fancy. This was way more interactive than that. And so if you think about that, when you read Shakespeare, you'll see that he put in like some of that humor and it's in the ways that he has the minor characters interacting with the audience. This is it's still used today. So here is a bunch of people. You can tell a lot of people fit in here. Here's the stage, and here's all the people standing around. The audiences today do not throw rotten vegetables, but it is open air. You can see this. The circle has open air. If you go to London, make it a stop. It's not a big deal or hard to go see it, and it's worth it. And close to the Tower of London, which you'll have to go see if you go to London. Yes, Lila.
If somebody were to go there today, would the prices be different?
Would the what be different?
The prices, like for like this.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Everything's gone up in price. But they can do actual Shakespearean. They do Shakespearean plays there now. It's a bit of a tourist stop now, as you might expect. All right. And when we say Shakespeare wrote it, we'll have to say Shakespeare, just in case it wasn't actually Shakespeare. What if it was Christopher Marlowe? Somebody look at your card and tell me why Christopher Marlowe. Chris?
He supposedly died in an accident when he used to be like a really good play writer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sounds like a TV show, doesn't it? A spy, killed in action, in witness protection. You have a book about this?
Well, it was like, it's sort of a weird setting, sort of like dystopian,
Mhm.
But you're only allowed to have like 2 children. If you have like 3, they're not allowed to be seen. And he has like a staged death so that he can't be caught. And then he gets seen, and it's like a mystery and like.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
it's
funny.
Wait, what's that?
I have no idea. I read it last time.
That is interesting. All right. So,
Any sense of it?
I don't know that Christopher Marlowe is the most winsome. I didn't even include the third person. I included the 2 that I thought were the better stories. This one might be even a better story. Anna, what is the theory that talks about Edward de Vere? That's very believable, isn't it? After we just read that story about who was it that was in her court that wasn't allowed to get married?
Sir Walter Raleigh. No, the best.
Yeah. Right, who wasn't allowed to get married because of Queen Elizabeth and then Bet Throckmorton. He got stuck in the tower, all of this. So, it makes it believable that Queen Elizabeth might have said, oh, you cannot write plays either. Yes?
But Shakespeare was a big deal back then, so it was like Disney for us. So wouldn't she want to be?
No. She was in favor of everyone getting married, but that's not her favorite courtier. She might have been in favor of somebody writing plays, but not her courtiers. They're supposed to be serving her, not off writing plays. It's like the people who are directly responsible for just making her look good. Kind of a political position. It's not a fashion position, it's more of a political position. Because even her maids, you remember Beth Throckmorton, who was a maid of the Queen, was from a very high family. So it was not a low position, it was a very high position to be in the Queen's court.
I can see why, because as you just said, they would throw rotten vegetables.
Yes.
I don't think she would be associated with rotten.
No, and she would not have been down with the rabble either. All right, 3 categories of Shakespeare's play. Ava?
Historical comedy and tragedy.
Correct. You have the tragedy, you have the comedy, you have the historical plays. We could actually go through all of these, but we'll stick with just the tragedies. 3 examples of tragedies. Audrey? Correct, and there's even more than that. When you think of tragedies, the difference between tragedies and comedies, what happens at the end of a tragedy?
Usually someone dies.
Not just someone.
Every main character.
Most people die, and you can notice this in all Shakespeare's work, the last person who speaks in a tragedy is the highest ranking person who's still alive. Usually a minor character, because all the major characters have ended up dying.
go back to the past.
Tragedy, comedy, historical plays. Comedies are things like Much Ado About Nothing, or what are other comedies that you've read? You're reading comedies with Miss Pilson. Have you gotten to one yet? Midsummer Night's Dream, is that what you're doing this year? That's a comedy. Miss Pilson always does comedies.
What the fuck? Nights of Christmas or something?
No, that's not Shakespearean. 14-line poem that has a certain rhyme scheme and it's iambic pentameter that made Shakespeare famous. What is it, Lily?
Sonnet?
It's called the sonnet. We're going to get back to that in just a minute. 3 examples of words that Shakespeare made up. I'm going to point to you. I just want you to tell me one.
Suspicious.
I was going to say that.
Okay, so do you have another one? We'll come back.
Lonely.
What is it?
Fretful.
Fretful. Ava? Lonely. Chris?
Assassination.
Assassination. Ben.
Mute.
Okay. What did you say?
Oh.
Okay. What did you say?
Hurry.
Hurry, yeah.
Bumpy.
Bumpy. All these totally normal words, right? It's just crazy to think that there was a person, a play in which so many of these words were made up, often by putting other ideas together. All right, what is love? Shakespeare answered this question in probably one of the most beautiful poems that was ever written, his Sonnet 116. And here is, surprise, even though we haven't yet finished your last project, I am introducing the next project. About once a year, I like a project to be you memorizing and then doing a presentation. And so we are going, when I have students memorize something, we work on it a lot in class. So you don't need to worry that I'm just going to send something home and tell you to learn it. But today I am going to, I'm just going to read through this with you with the goal being that you understand it. You can't properly learn something until you understand it. When is this due? Check your syllabus and you'll know when it's due. But it's going to be toward the end of the quarter. Yes, Trey?
So every year we have to memorize 2 chapters of the Bible, and like every week we memorize like the Bible verse. So
Oh,
I'm
cool.
really used to doing
You're used to memorizing. That's really helpful for the future too. Okay, so I pulled the part that was in your textbook. However, the sonnet actually starts 2 lines earlier than that. I forgot to bring in my pieces of paper that were the printout you get. So I'll just show you only the part that we're memorizing today. And then next time I'll give you the handout and you can mark it up. But right now we're going to work on just what does Sonnet 116 say. No. I want everyone to focus on the words, and I'm going to just make sure you understand the words. And we're only going to work today on just memorizing only the first 2 lines, and then we're going to move on to Bacon. Francis Bacon. All right.
I love bacon.
This is all about how do we define love, and you need to focus so that you have this in your head. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds. Okay, so let's start here. So we're starting off by defining what love is not. Love is not love which changes when it finds changes in the other person. To understand this, I want you to think about your parents. I'll reference myself, but you can put your parents into that story. 25 years ago, Mr. DeRocco and I promised to love each other for better, for worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. Okay? Now, what if 25 years later, Mr. DeRocco said, "You have changed too much. You know what? You're not the same person you were when you were 22 years old. In fact, since you've changed, I'm done with this. See ya." That is not love. Love is not love, which changes when it finds the other person has changed. Real love is committed despite the fact that the other person will change. Changes are part of what you're committing to. Through the changes, I will stay true to you. Love is not love, which alters when alteration finds in the other person. Matt?
If you just read like the first line, you'd be very, very, very confused.
Oh, but let's keep going. Or bends with the remover to remove. This is basically the same idea. Or it bends because of how the other person is behaving. So we start off by saying that love is not love if it gives up because of the other person's behavior. Oh no. It is an ever fixed mark. And by mark, I want you to imagine a target. Love is like a target that is not going to move. The person shooting the bow and arrow might move, but the target stays still. Love is always aimed at the same thing. It looks on tempest, and this of course doesn't mean actual storms. This is like emotional tempest, troubles of life. It looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star, like the North Star, the fixed star, to every wandering bark. And the word bark means ship. So you remember back in these days that when ships went out on the water, they would use the North Star, because it was a fixed star, as a way to steer the ship, right? Yes? Are you with me? So they would look at the North Star and they would figure out how to get where they were going using the star as their point of reference. Love is the star for every wandering ship. The ship is getting a little bit lost. Oh no! Look at the star. That's where I'm going in life. That is my direction. I'm fixed on this. Whose worth is unknown, although his height be taken. This is talking about the star as well. We don't know how valuable it is, even if we try to measure the star. All right, here's another image. Love is not time's fool. Okay, this is the part of the poem that's talking about when people get old. One day, boys, your hair might fall out. Is she going to look at you and say, oh my goodness, I don't like him anymore. I don't even love him because his hair. One day, girls, you're not going to have maybe the rosy lips and the cute cheeks that define you as a young woman. Love is not time's fool. Even though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. So this is saying that time is like death. You know that image of death with a sickle? It's going to go and cut things down. Here, time is not actually killing people, but it's cutting their beauty. It's chopping down. Like as people get older, just in general, their bodies age. So time is like taking out some of the youthful beauty. Love is not time's fool. Love doesn't change just because a person's body ages. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks. Now this is saying, you know how sometimes you stand and you're like, where did time go? It's like a year passed and I feel like it was like a week. That is what it's saying here. With the brief hours and weeks of life, that kind of like, oh, wait, how did 25 years pass? I feel like it's barely been a year. It's been like hours and weeks. What happened? Love does not alter with the brief hours and weeks of time, but bears it out, even to the edge of doom. So even if time takes you and your partner to the edge of doom, you stay true to each other. Yes. Yes. And then the last two lines are like a parenthesis. Follow these last two lines. If this be error, in other words, if this isn't true, and upon me proved. If it's ever proved that this is not the definition of love, I never wrote anything. Never wrote a play, never wrote a poem, and no man ever loved. The poet is saying, I am so sure of my definition of love that if you prove to me that this is not true, I've never written anything and nobody's ever loved anyone. In other words, it's true. I'm just guaranteeing you that this is true. All right, we are only going to go over the first two lines, and I want you to say this with me. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds. Notice I pause after the it. You need that pause in order to emphasize the meaning. Question? Yes. Say this with me. Say it with me. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds. Again, love is not love which alters when it alteration finds. I do not hear this side of the room. Let me hear it again. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds. Again. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds. All right, now try it without being able to see the words. Say it with me. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds. One more time. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds. Okay, we'll come back to this a bunch, but for right now we're going to move on. This guy has some fashion. Blythe, what is his name? Sir Francis Bacon. He was a philosopher who believed that what could make mankind better is reasoning, and science. Have you ever heard the quote, knowledge is power?
Yes.
This is a Sir Francis Bacon quote, actually. He said, ipsa scientia potestas est. Knowledge itself is power. So he firmly believed that learning things and using your minds and using your reason was the way to have power in general. Not like military power. Just the way we use knowledge is power. That kind of power. Education is power. All right, 5 questions about Sir Francis Bacon. You will work through these ideas again in the questions that I give you in your group work. The first one, what's the main difference between the Renaissance and the Age of Reason? Who had the name? Audrey. Good. So when you think about this, to say it in a different way, the Renaissance looked back, right, at the Greeks and the Romans. It looked back. But the Age of Reason looked forward to science. We're going to figure out new things. Renaissance, we're reaching back to the classics to help us. Age of Reason, looking on. Yes. Yes. The difference between, we already talked about the utopias created by Sir Thomas More. That was the one that we did the whole assignment for. Bacon also created a utopia. Blythe, what's the difference between these two utopias?
Well, Sir Thomas More wanted perfect social order, and Sir Thomas Bacon wanted perfect science.
Correct. So this is the main thing to know, is that More imagined perfect social order. Now think back to More with the utopia we talked about. Social order, like government. Social order, like society, times. And Bacon wanted to work science into it. So let me ask you about your dystopian books that you've read. Think to that. Dystopian books, dystopian novels. Were they talking about perfect social order or perfect science? Yes, Chris. You heard which one are you thinking of? Which book? Or maybe?
I was going to a book called Real Cross, but
Okay.
that's a lot.
Okay, so you're thinking social order. What do you think, Ben?
I'm thinking social order as well.
And which book is on your mind?
Well, both Hunger Games and there's a series called Abundance of Reading,
Okay.
and it's like there's this whole society.
So there's a lot of like structuring things with the social order. Every now and again, though, think about to the dystopian stuff you've read. Every now and again, isn't there some evil science in it, right? Like we're gonna kill people systematically by giving them a shot of something because we're done with them. And that kind of affirms our social order. So you see that both the mix-up of this perfect social order and the perfect science show up in the dystopian novels. Dystopian, of course, is the negative side of utopian. Lila?
There's this one book, I don't know what it's called, but they're in the movie, they like, if like a twin is born, they kill the one baby because like one of them needs to just stay alive.
Perfect example. So that's messing with the idea of the perfect science. It's using science to perfect society badly. Yeah. So those are dystopian, not utopian, but I think that rarely do people write utopian because it's kind of boring, and dystopian has better conflict in it. So people always write dystopian books. But you get the idea here.
You get the idea, sports fans.
What is another name for the scientific method that Sir Francis Bacon promoted? Lily?
Inductive method.
Correct. It's called the inductive method. And you have learned about this in science before because you learn about making up questions and creating hypotheses and then testing them. That is Sir Francis Bacon's method. He is the one who did the things Miss Adams has taught you about. It's Sir Francis Bacon who made this up. I'll give you an example from Bacon. He looked and he noticed people who went out in the cold often got sick. So he had a hypothesis. Going out in the cold must make you sick. So he tested it. Imagine doing this. You're not allowed to hurt people like this today. But he tested it. Let's send healthy people out in the cold. Let's send unhealthy people out in the cold. Let's send them out in the rain. Let's see if they get sick. And that's how he tested his hypothesis. That kind of test is inductive. It's starting with a hypothesis and out of that testing it with an experiment like that. There is a sketch on Bacon's book. Wesley, the sketch said, many will pass through and knowledge will be increased. What was the picture of?
Ship.
Ship doing what? Sailing through two pillars. Yes. Of Hercules, which reminds us of classical stuff. So you were hoping for a picture of this, and there it is. Did he think there was a place for faith?
I didn't see it.
Yes.
Of course there's a place for faith. I already explained this to you. All right. I want you to work with the person right next to you to see if you can answer at least 3 of these questions. For homework, you have to finish at least 3 of these. You turn the lights on. Work with your table. See if you can get a couple of these done, or at least one of them done before you leave. Can you girls turn on the lights, please? Jesus. 3 is all you have to do. You pick the 3 you want to do. I'll post it for you or send it home for you.